As the world watches closely the developments in Russia and Ukraine, we have with us Professor Dr. Vladimir Pryakhin, who is the Chair of Regional Studies and Foreign Policy Envoy Extraordinary and Minister Plenipotentiary, member RISA and member BISA, live from Moscow. He's a Russia expert. Thank you, Professor Vladimir, for speaking to Republic TV.
Good evening, Miranjan.
Good evening.
I'm happy to welcome the audience of Republic TV.
Welcome to Republic TV and thank you for speaking to our viewers. First of all, what's going on with the build-up? There are satellite images of thousands of troops amassing, weapons being placed strategically. What's the situation?
Miranjan, first of all, I would like to stress that Russians and Ukrainians are two fraternal peoples. Third of Russian population has Ukrainian origins. And I suppose the quarter of Ukrainians have Russian origin, Russian roots. So we are fraternal nations, and at the level of families, we haven't any problems. Every day, thousands and thousands of Russians call their relatives, parents in Ukraine, and vice versa. So what is going in great politics doesn't concern very much the life of ordinary people. And at state level, you see the trade volume between Russia and Ukraine in the year 2021 was the same as between Russia and India. But India is an enormous, huge country with population 1.5 billion inhabitants, and Ukraine is also a big nation in European scale, but with population only 40 million people. So you can understand that the connections between our fraternal countries are very close and tight. As to the political situation, you see there are a lot of extra-regional powers who would like to worsen the relationship between Russia and Ukraine. And they want the worsening the relationship, the declaration, the relationship between two countries, and they would be very glad if tomorrow a war could start between Russia and Ukraine. The more Ukrainians and Russians kill each other, the better is for those, let us say, extra-regional countries, I mean the NATO countries and some other. That is the reason of the up-to-date political situation in the region. But I am optimistic one. As to Russia, it is 100% sure that Russia will not invade Ukraine. And I am sure that 99% of Ukrainian population doesn't want to invade Russia and attack Russian people in Russia or Russian-speaking people in Donetsk region in the east of Ukraine. Of course, in Ukraine there is a small strata of population, especially in the west, who is traditionally anti-Russian. But that is very small radical nationalist strata which cannot influence very much the relationship between our two, I repeat, fraternal nations. And I am sure that the situation in a week or two will be much more quiet than it is now.
Professor, if I heard you correctly, you said, in your opinion, in your view, Russia will not invade Ukraine, but you also...
Exactly so.
Yes.
Never.
But you also indicated that if there is action, if any, could be a potential trigger by Ukraine and allies. Now, let me ask you now, the way things are moving, you have strategic, you have a big build-up at the border, you have war exercises with Belarus, right? And you're getting calls. Joe Biden has spoken to Putin. Germany's adding pressure, right? Now, it's an eyeball-to-eyeball situation. And it seems like everyone's watching whether Russia blinks or whether it's Ukraine that blinks first.
You see, if I understand your question correctly, first of all, I would like once more strengthen that there is no danger of Russian invading Ukraine. As to the military maneuvers between Russia and Belarus, now it is a regular maneuver which is happening every year. It's a season maneuver, and there is no danger for nobody. You see, the situation in the Eastern Europe is aggravating because of permanent strengthening of the NATO countries' military build-up on the border with Belarus and Russia. So as we are allies with Belarus, we also should think about the security of our countries. But there is no aggressive intentions with regard to Ukraine or any other country in the eastern or other part of Europe, of the part of Russia or Belarus. Not at all. And as to the military forces correlation, of course, there is some military build-up in the western part of Russia, but it is smaller than Ukrainian build-up in the east of Ukraine, directed against their own people in the southeast part of Ukraine in the so-called Donetsk region. That's what I can tell to you.
Okay. Now, diplomatically, how do you see Russia handle this situation?
Russia handles this situation. You know that there was consultations in Geneva on 10th of January, consultation in Brussels on 13th of January. After that, our foreign minister, Mr. Lavrov, had talked with Mr. Blinken, and our president, Mr. Putin, also had telephone talks and personal talks with the presidents of France and the United States. And these talks are rather serious, and they help and will help to ameliorate the situation. But you see, there is one interesting thing, that Russia in 2022 is not Russia in 1992, when the Soviet Union was dismantled. Russia had no military forces, no industry, no science, and no agriculture. Now Russia is in the procedure of resurrection. We will not permit to talk to us with a colonial, with a subordinated country which should fulfill the orders from Washington. We are not happy with the growing of NATO military built up in the eastern frontiers of our country. NATO tanks are in the 200 kilometers, 150 miles distance from our north capital city of St. Petersburg. They are very close to our borders in the south. And if there is a danger of accepting Ukraine in the NATO, it will mean that the NATO military infrastructure will be too close to Moscow. It means that NATO rockets and missiles can reach Moscow in 5-6 minutes time. We cannot accept it. And our president, frankly and sincerely, openly declared it both to the President Biden and to President Macron, who is now fulfilling the functions of European Union chairman. That is our principal position.
Now, okay, my last question to you, Dr. Vladimir. From what you're telling me, it's sort of a wargaming situation, right? With strategic deployments being made close to Russian cities. Now, you're telling me, and most Russians we speak to say there is no question of invasion, we will not invade Ukraine.
Exactly so.
Then in that case, why do you think this narrative is being built up or pushed that Russia is going to invade Ukraine?
You see, there are political ambitions in the West how to expand their political influence into Ukraine and through Ukraine to Russia, because they have a great geopolitical game in the entire world. Now the geopolitical interests of United States are more and more moving to Asia, to the Asian Pacific region, because they would like to create an security belt against China, and that's why they would like to have subordinate puppet states like up-to-date Ukraine in Europe, so to have free hands in Pacific to solve their further strategic and geopolitical aims. But you see, after the consultations in December 1st, what our president did, he visited Fraternal India and had very constructive and fruitful talks with your president Modi. And so Russia has very good relationship now with Asian, Eastern friendly countries, so it cannot be isolated. That is something which makes the Western European countries and NATO countries so angry with Russia. They would like to aggravate the situation and deteriorate it by deterioration relationship between Russia and Ukraine. But neither Russia nor Ukrainian people, Ukrainian nation wants it. And what is interesting that the Ukrainian president also declared that they doesn't see any preparation for invasion into Ukraine. That is most disturbing point for Biden and for his subordinates, who declared that they don't understand this statement of President Zelensky. Thank you.
Okay. Professor Dr. Vladimir Pryakhin, thank you for speaking to Republic TV. Seen as someone who's close to Kremlin and knows Russia best. Thank you. We will be close and speak to each other again in the next few days and weeks.
Thank you a lot, Miranjan. And once more, my best greetings to Republic TV audience.
Likewise. Thank you very much.